A botanist disappeared in the Peruvian Amazon in March 2019. Her last Instagram post showed a massive jaguar print in the mud near the Ucayali River. The caption read simply, "Found what I was looking for." She hasn't posted since. But 3 months later, an indigenous Shipibo healer began teaching a medicinal technique that the botanist had been desperately searching for. A technique that had been lost for generations. When asked how she relearned it, the healer smiled and said, "The jaguar remembered. Deep in the Amazon rainforest, where the canopy blocks out the sun and the air hangs thick with moisture and mystery, indigenous communities have preserved a legend that challenges everything we think we know about the boundaries between human and animal, between teacher and student, between this world and something far more ancient." They call them the Yagara Yachak, the jaguar teachers. And according to those who still honor the old ways, these aren't just stories told around ceremonial fires. They're warnings, invitations, and for some, their transformation itself. The legend centers on a phenomenon that indigenous shamans across the Amazon basin have reported for centuries. Jaguars that walk differently, that watch with too much intelligence in their golden eyes, that appear at crucial moments when someone is ready to receive knowledge that could save lives. Knowledge about which plants heal, which diseases, which roots can stop bleeding, which leaves can cure fevers that modern medicine cannot touch. But here's where the story becomes unsettling. These jaguars aren't just intelligent animals. According to the tradition, they are shamans. Human shamans who have taken jaguar form specifically to pass on medicinal wisdom that might otherwise be lost forever. Maria Consuela, a jaguar elder living near the Colombian border, shared her account in 2017. She was 15 years old when she encountered her first jaguar teacher. It was during the rainy season, and her younger brother had fallen ill with a fever that wouldn't break. The village healer had died the previous year, and no one remembered the specific remedy. Maria's mother was frantic. They had tried everything they knew. Maria went into the forest to gather water from a sacred spring. That's when she saw it, a massive jaguar sitting perfectly still on the path ahead. She froze, every instinct screamed at her to run, but the jaguar didn't move. It just watched her with eyes that seemed impossibly aware. Then it did something that still makes Maria's voice shake when she tells the story. It stood, walked 10 paces to the left, and used its paw to scrape away leaves from the base of a specific tree. Then it looked at her again, before disappearing into the undergrowth. Maria approached the spot. Growing, there was a plant she'd seen before, but never paid attention to. Something made her take a sample. When she brought it back to the village, an elderly woman gasped. It was the exact plant the old healer used to use for fevers. The plant everyone had forgotten. Maria's brother recovered within 2 days. But Maria's story isn't unique. It's part of a pattern that stretches back generations and continues to this day. The Matses people of the Peru-Brazil border have documented over 50 encounters with jaguar teachers in their oral histories. The Shipibo Canibo have ceremonial songs specifically about receiving medicine from transformed shamans. The Shuar of Ecuador perform rituals acknowledging the jaguar as the ultimate keeper of healing knowledge. According to these traditions, the transformation isn't random. A shaman doesn't simply decide to become a jaguar on a whim. The change happens when crucial knowledge is at risk of being lost. When a lineage of healers is broken. When a young person with potential needs guidance but has no teacher. That's when the boundary becomes permeable. That's when a shaman who has passed on might return in Jaguar form to ensure the wisdom survives. Dr. Elena Vasquez, an anthropologist who spent 12 years living with various Amazonian communities, recorded dozens of these accounts. In her controversial 2015 paper, she noted something disturbing. The encounters with Jaguar teachers increased dramatically whenever a community faced a new disease or when Western contact disrupted traditional knowledge transfer. One account from 2008 particularly haunted her. A Kafan healer named Alejandro described encountering a jaguar that led him on a 3-day journey through the rainforest. The jaguar would walk ahead, then wait, walk ahead, then wait. Always staying just visible, always moving with purpose. On the 3rd day, they reached a grove of trees Alejandro had never seen before. The jaguar circled one specific tree 3 times, then vanished. Alejandro harvested bark from that tree and brought it back to his village. Within weeks, he developed a treatment for a fungal infection that had been devastating the community. A treatment that worked better than anything the visiting medical missionaries could provide. When asked how he knew how to prepare the bark, Alejandro said the knowledge simply appeared in his mind during the ayahuasca ceremony he performed after returning. He said he could feel the jaguar's presence in his consciousness, showing him exactly what to do. But the legend has a darker side, a side that the elders speak of with great caution. Not everyone who encounters a jaguar teacher returns unchanged. Some people follow the jaguars and never come back at all. The communities have theories about what happens to them. Some say they become apprentices, learning directly from the transformed shamans in places humans aren't meant to go. Others say they themselves become jaguar teachers, their human forms left behind as they take on the responsibility of preserving knowledge for future generations. There's a Quichua village near Tina, Ecuador, where they still talk about Carlos Inti. He was training to be a healer in the early 1990s when he became obsessed with finding a cure for a disease that was killing children in his community. He told his wife he'd been dreaming of jaguars every night, that they were calling to him, showing him paths through the forest he'd never noticed before. One morning in June 1993, Carlos left before dawn. He told his wife he knew where he needed to go, that the jaguars had finally shown him clearly. 3 weeks later, hunters found his clothes neatly folded beside the Napo River. His shoes were placed carefully on top, no signs of struggle. But here's what makes people whisper. 6 months after Carlos disappeared, a young woman in his village fell desperately ill. The same disease that had been killing the children. Her family had given up hope. Then her father, hunting at dawn, encountered a massive jaguar near their home. The jaguar didn't run. Then it walked to a specific plant, and just like in Maria's story decades earlier, scraped away the earth to expose the roots. The father recognized something in the jaguar's eyes. He swears to this day it was Carlos. The plant the jaguar revealed became the cure the village needed. And sometimes, people say, they still see that particular jaguar watching the village from the forest edge. Modern researchers struggle with these accounts. Dr. James Morrison, a biologist who studied jaguar behavior in Brazil for 15 years, admits that jaguars are incredibly intelligent and have been observed engaging in seemingly purposeful behavior around humans. But transformation, there are patterns that don't fit normal jaguar behavior. Jaguars are solitary and typically avoid humans. Yet in these stories, they seek out specific people. They lead rather than hunt. They reveal rather than conceal. They teach. And the medicinal knowledge, that's perhaps the most compelling evidence. Indigenous communities have successfully treated diseases using remedies revealed by jaguar teachers that later proved to have genuine pharmaceutical properties. Plants that Western science is only now beginning to study. Compounds that actually work. In 2021, a research team from the University of São Paulo investigated one such remedy. A ticuna healer had been using a specific combination of 3 plants to treat drug-resistant bacterial infections. When asked where he learned the treatment, he described an encounter with a jaguar that led him to each plant in sequence. Laboratory analysis confirmed the combination produced powerful antibiotic compounds that pharmaceutical companies are now trying to synthesize. Coincidence, pattern recognition, or something that doesn't fit into Western categories of possible and impossible. The legend persists because the encounters continue. Just last year, a guide in the Manu National Park reported seeing a jaguar behave in ways he'd never witnessed in 20 years of jungle work. It appeared repeatedly to a group that included a young indigenous woman who'd been studying ethnobotany in Lima. The jaguar would appear on the trail ahead, wait until she noticed specific plants, then disappear. By the trip's end, she documented 6 medicinal plants her grandmother had known, but never taught her before passing away. The elders say the jaguar teachers appear when they're needed most. When knowledge is slipping away, when the connection between humans and the forest is breaking. When someone is ready to learn, but has no one to teach them. That's when the shamans return. That's when the boundary dissolves. That's when the jaguars remember what humans have forgotten. And perhaps that's the most unsettling part of this legend. Not that shamans might become jaguars, but why they need to. What does it say about us that the forest itself has to intervene to preserve wisdom we're letting die? What does it mean that knowledge is becoming so precious, so endangered, that it requires guardians who can move between worlds? The next time you hear about an unexplained encounter in the Amazon, about a jaguar that watched too long or led someone somewhere unexpected, ask yourself, what knowledge are we losing? And who or what is desperate enough to transform completely just to make sure we remember? Somewhere in the Amazon tonight, a jaguar is watching. And maybe, just maybe, it remembers being human, remembers the medicine, remembers what we've forgotten, and it's waiting for someone ready to learn.